Developing right now on Morning News Now, escalation and retaliation in the Middle East. This morning, Israel attacking a key Iranian gas field and targets in Beirut just one day after an Israeli strike killed Iran's intelligence minister, the third top Iranian leader killed by Israeli forces just this week. Here in the U.S., President Trump honoring 6 airmen killed during Operation Epic Fury. And on Capitol Hill, Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard grilled by lawmakers about the status of Iran's nuclear capabilities when the war began.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
Meanwhile, U.S. forces working to reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz as oil prices surge. We will bring you the latest. Also this morning, a late winter heat wave scorching the West Coast with record-breaking temperatures reaching the triple digits in some cities. But on the East Coast, we are looking at frost advisories and below average temperatures. Angie is here tracking it all. Plus turbulence before takeoff. Travelers waiting in line for hours as airports across the country struggle with a staffing shortage from a month-long partial government shutdown. We will have an update on the funding fight that's forcing TSA workers bearing the brunt of this to work without pay. And a priceless gift. A major university announced it will soon cover the cost of tuition for lower-income families. More on the initiative meant to make higher education accessible to everyone. So incredible.
Exactly. A lot of families, I think, were Googling Notre Dame yesterday to try and figure out more.
And they're joining
about
a list of other schools doing similar initiatives.
It's becoming a popular thing. All right. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your day with us. We're going to begin this morning with the latest news, of course, out of the Middle East amid the ongoing war with Iran. Overnight, Iran intensified its strikes on energy sites in neighboring Gulf states, including a key facility in Qatar in retaliation for an Israeli attack on a major gas field in Iran, which is the world's largest. This morning, the price of crude oil soared past $116, rising almost 10% in a day as anxiety builds over the world's oil supply following those overnight attacks. On Wednesday, Iran's president confirmed the death of the country's intelligence minister, calling his killing the latest in Israel's, quote, cowardly assassinations of high-ranking Iranian leaders. This is after Iran's top national security official and the head of its all-volunteer Basij force were both killed in Israeli airstrikes earlier this week.
President Trump attended a dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base yesterday. He paid his respects to the 6 U.S. service members who died in a refueling aircraft crash in Iraq last week. The transfer was closed to press coverage. In all, 13 U.S. service members have been killed since the war with Iran began. 2 others died of non-combat causes. The strikes continue across the Middle East. Yesterday, the U.S. unleashed bunker buster bombs targeting Iran's anti-ship cruise missile launchers along the Strait of Hormuz. And in Washington, senators voted to reject a war powers resolution. It would have directed the president to remove U.S. forces from the war without an official declaration of war. We have a team in place this morning to help us break it all down, including the impact of the latest strikes across the Middle East and the war's ongoing political and economic fallout. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, with more. Keir, I know you had a chance to attend Saudi Arabia's meeting of foreign ministers from Arab and Islamic countries this morning. What is the message coming out of that meeting?
Well, it was a stunning time to attend that meeting, honestly, Joe, because we flew in here to Riyadh yesterday, and just flying in, our plane was delayed by 90 minutes as it circled, it held, while Riyadh airport was closed for a while. They managed to reopen it, and then once we were here, the sound of booms over this capital city as the Saudis say they intercepted every missile that was fired. But the crucial point here is that those missiles were being fired even while the Saudi foreign minister had gathered together other foreign ministers from the region. I watched the Turkish foreign minister walk through the hotel lobby as we were getting those missile alerts and hearing those booms. And that was something that really stunned the Saudi foreign minister and the Saudi foreign ministry here. Take a listen. I asked him about it.
Keir Simmons from NBC News. Have you ever experienced in your diplomatic life an evening where you have organized a meeting of senior representatives of countries, and a neighboring country fires upon the city where that meeting is taking place. And to the point, the question you were asked, just to ask again honestly, can Saudi Arabia now ever envisage an Iran that is able to threaten it with missiles and drones, and is able to determine the oil price by effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz?
I've not had a long enough diplomatic career to have experienced such a blatant attempt at blackmail as firing missiles while the diplomatic gathering is taking place. And that's what it was. To me, it was clear that the attack today was timed to coincide with this meeting in order to attempt, I don't know, to intimidate those present, to send home the message that Iran will not stop. All I can say is we were not intimidated. We were not in any way convinced that Iran can be a legitimate partner when it behaves this way. So the reality is, any re-engagement with Iran, this conflict, will end at some point.
Now, there are some of America's partners and allies in this region, notably Oman, Joe, arguing that they should try to help the United States extricate itself from this conflict. But that's not the prevailing mood. As you heard there, the prevailing mood really amongst these Gulf countries is that we are close to a point of no return where it's impossible to regain trust with the Iranian regime, certainly, and that ultimately the only real satisfactory outcome from all of this is that Iran is not able to target these countries again. How you get there is a different question.
Keir, if we could talk about oil exports from the region, which is just really becoming the centerpiece of this war. President Trump took this step yesterday, kind of surprising, calling on Israel to stop attacking a major gas field in Iran. It's actually the world's largest, as we mentioned, but said if Iran attacks our ally, Qatar, again, he vowed to, quote, massively blow up the entirety of that natural gas field. Walk us through what we're seeing back and forth here and just how critical a piece oil is of this war at this point.
Well, it's all about oil, as we know, but now it's really also very much about gas. That's the South Pars gas field in Iran. It's just a moment to pause and just point out how interconnected these countries are. That gas field is actually shared with Qatar. It was struck by Israel. And that is why Iran says it is retaliating with these strikes overnight on the Ras Laffan gas field, gas facility in Qatar. And that is what has caused the gas price to surge overnight. And those strikes have continued. And as you say, President Trump now posting overnight, there will be no more attacks by Israel on Iran's gas capability. But then, at the same time, threatening that if Iran doesn't stop attacking the Gulf region's energy infrastructure, that he will attack Iran's gas fields. So that this is, again, a moment of profound danger of escalation.
Keir Simmons reporting from Saudi Arabia. Keir, thank you so much.
Well, as the war with Iran continues in its third week, the Trump administration is facing stiff pushback over the president's rationale for starting the conflict. On Capitol Hill yesterday, National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard deflected questions from lawmakers about whether U.S. intelligence backed up President Trump's rationale for starting the war.
Gabbard has been mostly silent since the conflict began, but pressed during the hearing, she declined to say if Iran's nuclear program posed an imminent threat, something President Trump has repeatedly claimed.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence timely, objective, and independent of political considerations.
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States.
Once again, Senator, the intelligence community has provided the inputs that make up this annual threat assessment.
You won't answer the question.
It is the nature of the imminent threat that the president has to make that determination based on a collection and volume
You're here
of
to be
information
timely.
and intelligence that he is provided with.
You're evading a question because to provide a candid response to the committee would contradict a statement from the White House.
NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumback joins us from Washington with more on this. Gary, good morning. So it was a lot of back and forth on that particular question, the imminent threat question. Same kind of thing when asked about the Strait of Hormuz, her as well as the leaders of the intelligence community being asked repeatedly, did the president know that this could happen with the Strait of Hormuz? And a lot of deflecting. Walk us through more of her testimony and what her comments may tell us about her current standing also in the administration.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard finding herself in a position where she's trying to defend what the Trump administration is doing while also defending what her intelligence agencies are saying, while also trying to keep her own job. Tulsi Gabbard not including a portion in her spoken remarks that she did include in her written remarks related to whether or not Iran has done anything to continue to enrich uranium since Operation Midnight Hammer last June. When asked why she didn't include that in her spoken statement, she said she was just trying to save time. But anybody who has been following Tulsi Gabbard for several years now knows she's decidedly anti-war. She ran her entire 2020 presidential campaign on the idea of no more wars, and she joined the Trump administration in part because of the Trump administration's campaign promise for no more wars. Guys.
Gary, this testimony came just one day after Joe Kent, who is a longtime Trump ally, announced his resignation as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. His opinion of just how imminent the threat from Iran was quite different from the president. Here's some of what he had to say on the Tucker Carlson show yesterday.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean,
now, by June, he's referring to the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last summer. Source telling NBC News that Kent is now under investigation by the FBI. What all can you tell us?
Yeah, Joe Kent, now the subject of an FBI leak investigation, accused of leaking potentially classified information during his time as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. The FBI has declined to comment here, but Trump allies have been trashing Joe Kent online ever since he released that really big statement about 24 hours ago. FBI did decline to comment, but the cracking down on leaks to journalists is something the Trump administration has been big on for several years now.
Gary, overnight the Senate narrowly rejected this vote on war powers resolution that would have directed President Trump to remove U.S. forces from hostilities with Iran. Just walk us through what this means for the conflict and the president's authority here.
Yeah, this was largely expected. Only 47 senators voted yes. John Fetterman, the only Democrat to vote no. Rand Paul, the only Republican to vote yes. What this means, essentially, is nothing changes. The president is still going to war with Iran without congressional authorization. And at this point, there's not a whole lot Congress can do. And this is especially relevant because, as NBC News has reported, the Trump administration is considering and is thinking about boots on the ground in Iran.
Gary Grumback, thank you.
The war with Iran cast a big shadow over yesterday's Federal Reserve meeting. The central bank, as expected, left interest rates unchanged, but Fed Chair Jerome Powell faced several questions about how the conflict could impact the economy moving forward.
Yeah, Powell warned inflation was expected to tick higher, but said it was too soon to tell what the longer-term effects of the war would be. Take a listen to some of what he said during yesterday's news conference.
The implications of events in the Middle East for the U.S. economy are uncertain. In the near term, higher energy prices will push up overall inflation, but it is too soon to know the scope and duration of the potential effects on the economy. The thing I really want to emphasize is that nobody knows. The economics effect could be bigger, they could be smaller, they could be much smaller or much bigger. We just don't know.
Caleb Silver joins us now. He's Investopedia's editor-in-chief and the chief business editor of People, Inc. So we expected the interest rates to remain unchanged. Explain why that is. And looking ahead, do we think we will see any cuts at all later this year?
Yeah, that's what everybody wants to know, but nobody knows. If you heard Chair Powell's press conference, I listened. He said, I don't know, we don't know, it's uncertain, it's hard to know. He must have said that 12 times because they just don't know, because they don't know how long this conflict is going to last and what that's going to mean for crude oil prices. We saw Brent crude now topping $120 a barrel this morning. That's really tough for Europe, which uses a lot of Brent crude. But the fact that prices could remain high for an undetermined amount of time could definitely push prices up, and that's why they held pat. It looked like they may have one maybe small cut before the end of the year, but now if you're looking at rising prices over the next few months, the Fed might have to consider raising interest rates to cool things down.
Okay, so uncertainty, you said it, the big word yesterday, but what did we hear from him? Any comments, any hints on just how he sees the economy being impacted by what we're seeing in Iran?
Yeah, he sees higher prices, and we already saw that through the producer price index. That's what producers and manufacturers pay for raw materials, but also consumer prices. All of this was before the attack on Iran, so prices were rising already, and now you're going to deal with the impacts of rising crude oil prices that affect every part of the supply chain and lift prices in general. So he knows higher prices are coming. He just doesn't know the duration. It was an 11-1 vote to keep interest rates right where they are, but he did emphasize the fact that most Fed presidents and governors see the economy growing at relatively a barbecue pace, 4.4%, 2.3%. The labor market's slowing, but the key thing to watch here is rising prices due to oil.
And in the last 24 hours, we've seen an uptick in strikes on energy facilities in the Middle East, suggesting this could get worse. I mean, it begs the question, how bad could this get when it comes to oil and gas prices?
Yeah, well, so look at the framework. $80 to $100 a barrel is sort of manageable for the economy. Yes, it means higher gas prices. You get to $100 to $120 a barrel on a sustained period of time, you're talking about a serious slowdown in growth, not recession, but then you get to 120 to 140. If that lasts for a couple months, we're talking about at least stagflation, which is slowing growth and rising prices, but potentially a recession. Stock market hasn't really reacted to this yet like we thought it might. It's only down about 3%, but it could.
Tell us, though, more about what we are seeing just in terms of market volatility and this bit of a sell-off we saw yesterday.
A lot of us have been waiting for this stock market to fall 5, 10, 15% because of this energy shock, but it hasn't here in the U.S. If you start to look overseas, though, in Europe, which relies heavily on Brent crude oil, and a lot of the impacts of natural gas are hurting that economy, those stock markets in Europe and in Asia, they're down significantly, 5 to 6%. The U.S., we're down about 3 to 4%. The Dow's at its low for the year. A lot of us thought it would be worse. At this point in time, it could get worse, and I expect more volatility in the future.
Caleb Silver, thank you so much.
Well, it's not even spring yet, and the West Coast is already dealing with a sweltering heat wave. It's really making it feel like the dog days of summer. Millions of people are under heat alerts this week, with some places posting record high temperatures. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz shows us how the West is bracing for this historic heat long before the scorching summer months.
Across the West, a scorching March heat wave making winter feel more like the height of summer. From California to New Mexico, 38 million people under heat alerts. Cities like Tucson and Phoenix bracing for triple-digit temps. Neither have ever before seen a 100-degree day in winter.
Those are June. Those are July temperatures.
The Phoenix Fire Department says already this week they've had to make at least 2 heat-related rescues on their hiking trails, which the city is now closing during the day through Sunday. Multiple spring training games in the area are also moving to evening hours.
Take breaks every 45 minutes. Get in a cooler environment and cool yourself down.
In L.A., the blazing sun beating down on these construction workers in Altadena.
When it comes about 1 or 2 o'clock, we are dying out here. I mean, it is hot. We rolled up yesterday at 2:30 because it was so hot. We drank 4 Gatorades each, 4 water. It was like, you can't get enough fluids.
Some ski resorts now forced to close for the season early. These images from Vail, Colorado show parts of the slope so melted you can see the grass. And in Nebraska, the warm, dry, and windy conditions continue to fuel those massive wildfires that have now turned deadly, claiming the life of 86-year-old Rose White, a grandmother who died trying to escape. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
Well, after traveling to the frozen north, Angie Lastman has returned to our studio now fully thawed. We put her in an incubator overnight. She joins us now with more on the historic heat and other forecasts.
I tell you what, guys, my heat was cranked all the way up when I got home. Unfortunately, we are not done with the cold just yet. We're still dealing with these kind of frost advisories across parts of the southeast and just temperatures sitting below normal in some spots. So let's start with the southeast. 14 million people, less than what we were dealing with yesterday, but still extending from South Carolina all the way to Alabama Atlanta and Augusta included in there, Myrtle Beach as well, with temperatures kind of flirting with freezing this morning in some of these spots. Columbia, one of those locations, Wilmington as well, upper 30s from Mobile to Tallahassee, and 40 degrees this morning in Atlanta. Not quite as bad across the east as it was yesterday. We're still running maybe 4 to 6 degrees below normal, but it's not quite as impressive as what we saw yesterday with that cold air settling in behind the earlier cold front that worked through this week. Otherwise, we've got 35 in Buffalo right now, feeling like 22 in Boston, feeling like 33 in New York City. So you get the picture. You need the extra layers if you live in the Great Lakes, in the Northeast, down across the Southeast. A very different story if we look west, where the less layers is the way to go, because we've got this kind of high pressure sitting across this part of the country. And that means that all that sinking air keeps the heat trapped at the surface. So essentially, we've got the potential to see all-time March records for places like Palm Springs, Las Vegas, Phoenix, all of those locations. And it just generally across this region is going to be quite dangerous, with temperatures sitting anywhere from 15 to 30 degrees above where they should be for this time of year. Those are very summer-like temperatures. You heard Liz mentioning it. 38 million people under these heat alerts, the heat advisories, the heat warnings up for parts of Arizona, Nevada, and California. And this record heat is actually going to expand through the day today. So yes, parts of the Southwest, like Phoenix, 104 degrees today, 89 in Amarillo, but even Little Rock, Kansas City, Alexandria, into those upper 70s. Temperatures that you do not typically see for this time of year. It gets even warmer for tomorrow. So 68 degrees in Washington, D.C., 75 for Columbia. But the dangerous heat is going to still be in place across the Southwest, across the Rockies. You see the 90s for El Paso, Amarillo, Austin, 109 degrees in Palm Springs. And then as we get into next week, it'll be pretty nice for most. We'll start to see things kind of moderating out. We go from the 90s on Saturday in Wichita to the 60s by the time the work week starts. So a little bit of a brief break there. And then the upper 60s in Philadelphia on Sunday. That'll feel nice for folks that are looking for some warmer air, but it does dip down to the 50s by Monday. So a little bit of everything for everybody at this point. But making sure that you have a way to find a cool spot across the West is going to be really key. We know that heat is a big killer, and we're concerned about that.
Very important. I feel like I forget what month it is. Because there are days like, is it February or May?
Right. I'm talking about an all-time temperature record after being in a blizzard. It doesn't make sense. But
it is March.
It is the world we live in.
We're told. All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
This morning, we have more on the disturbing new allegations against late civil rights icon Cesar Chavez. The prominent labor movement leader died more than 3 decades ago, but now he's facing allegations he sexually abused women and girls. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal reports.
I think that it is a fair contract.
Shocking allegations that Latino labor rights icon Cesar Chavez, whose name is on schools and monuments across the country, sexually abused women and girls. Decades after his death, Dolores Huerta, now 95, who co-founded the United Farm Workers Union with Chavez, revealed in a statement he sexually assaulted her twice. The first time I was manipulated and pressured into having sex with him. The second time I was forced against my will and in an environment where I felt trapped. Huerta says the encounters resulted in 2 children with Chavez. I chose to keep my pregnancy secret, and after the children were born, I arranged for them to be raised by other families that could give them stable lives. Her statement came after the New York Times published an investigation detailing Huerta's account, along with 2 other women who say Chavez sexually abused them beginning when they were 12 and 13 years old. NBC News has not spoken with the women. One, Ana Murguia, is seen here next to Chavez during a march in 1975. The Times said it found extensive evidence to support the 2 women's claims through interviews with more than 60 people, union records, and confidential documents. Neither the paper nor NBC News have been able to corroborate Huerta's claims, which she said she kept secret for 60 years. Chavez, together with Huerta, led a movement widely credited with transforming farm labor in the United States.
It is a pleading for social change, for social justice.
Guaranteeing union protections, health, safety, and social services. His family acknowledging the allegations, calling them deeply painful, adding they wish peace and healing to the survivors and commend their courage to come forward.
And Huerta says the farm workers movement has always been bigger and more important than any one individual. This, as the union he helped found, says it won't participate in any upcoming annual remembrance events for Chavez's birthday.
All right, Camila, thank you. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a security alert from Apple, an elaborate hacking campaign putting iPhone users at risk, what we're learning from cybersecurity experts, and how you can protect yourself.
Up first, though, after the break, diplomacy at the White House. President Trump set to host Japan's new prime minister later today to talk trade, but the war with Iran could complicate the conversation. We will explain. That's next. Stay with us. We're back now with details about a high-stakes meeting that is set for the White House later today. It's between President Trump and Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi. The war with Iran threatens to overshadow what was expected to be a meeting focused on trade and strengthening the U.S.-Japanese alliance.
President Trump called out Japan in a post, urging other countries to send warships to secure the critical Strait of Hormuz. That's something Takaichi has suggested might be against Japanese law. Almost anticipating she's going to get an earful from the president, she has said she expects today's meeting to be very difficult.
NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us from Beijing with more. Janice, good morning. So President Trump and the prime minister, they have had a good relationship, but Japan relies heavily on oil that it imports that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, puts her in a delicate position. Just tell us about the stakes for the prime minister going into today's meeting.
Well, Sanai Takaichi will be under enormous pressure when she goes into this meeting. They have met before. They appear to have a good rapport. They've bonded over politics and baseball. But the war in Iran is looming over this. President Trump had demanded that allies like Japan send warships into the Middle East to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Japan declined. That made President Trump frustrated and angry, according to the posts that we've seen on Truth Social. And now he's saying that the U.S. doesn't need any help. Still, Takaichi is going to have to answer for this in person and then as well be prepared to deflect other demands that President Trump might make.
Janice, there is a chance President Trump could put more just public pressure on the prime minister to provide that naval support he's looking for in the Strait of Hormuz. Explain why she's in such a difficult position when it comes to her country's constitution and just when it comes to the Japanese public.
Well, people in Japan are deeply skeptical of this war, and the country has had fine relations with Tehran for decades. So there is the added diplomatic risk for Japan of being seen as siding too much with the U.S. Japan gets 95% of its oil from the Middle East, and 70% of it comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So they do have a vested interest in what's happening, and we can expect President Trump to lean into that. But its pacifist constitution that was written at the end of World War II, it was written by Americans, it limits use of force to self-defense. So it means that legally, Takaichi can't agree to send Japan's military to help resolve an international dispute. Japan does, however, have minesweepers that President Trump is likely going to be interested in. So it remains to be seen if Takaichi is going to commit to that.
Janice, last year the U.S. and Japan struck a trade deal that solidified a 15% tariff on Japanese products. How is trade policy expected to factor into this visit?
Well, trade was supposed to be one of the key issues, that and the security alliance between the U.S. and Japan. These are both priorities for Takaichi. Japan's economy is having sluggish growth. They're coming out of years of deflation and zero interest rates. Japanese bonds could soon be earning interest, which could take money away from U.S. treasuries. And that's another issue that has irked President Trump and is likely to come up. Overall, this was supposed to be an easy visit for her. It was supposed to be friendly, coming off of her landslide victory last month. But she could not have prepared for this, to be the first major leader to be in the Oval Office since the start of the war. So this is going to be a meeting that's likely to be tense. It'll be civil, but it will also be unpredictable.
And another concern for Japan is China's rising military and economic power. What are the commitments that Japan is looking for from the U.S. ahead of President Trump's now delayed summit with President Xi?
Well, definitely. And it has a lot to do with Takaichi's strategy on the timing of this visit with President Trump, which was designed to happen in the middle of March before he was to come here to Beijing to have this important summit with China's leader Xi Jinping. She wanted to get to him first, to be able to shore up U.S. support for Japan at a time when Japan-China relations are broken. There is military tension between Japan and China, Japan and North Korea. So she wanted to be the last voice that was in his ear before he had that meeting with Xi. That meeting is now not happening, and she finds herself in Washington walking this tightrope. Joe and Savannah.
Janice, thank you.
In Pakistan, more than a dozen people are dead after a powerful storm lashed the country's largest city overnight.
NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Well, that's right. Authorities in Pakistan say that at least 15 people were now killed and several others were injured after a big storm battered the city of Karachi overnight. Now, emergency services say heavy rains and winds of up to 56 miles per hour uprooted trees, disrupted traffic, and even caused walls and roofs to collapse. Authorities warned residents to stay indoors while emergency crews clear the roads from the many trees that have fallen. Let's go to Britain now, where health authorities say they will roll out meningitis vaccines to thousands of students at the University of Kent in the southeast of England after an outbreak of the disease there. 2 young students at the university have so far died, and several others have contracted the disease in the meningitis outbreak, which Britain's health secretary described as unprecedented in its spread. And let's end this tour of the world in Seoul, where authorities raised the terror alert and are preparing to deploy thousands of police to the capital of South Korea. Now, they're not preparing for war, but for an army of fans expected to attend the comeback concert on Saturday by BTS, one of the, if not the biggest K-pop band in the world. Around 260,000 fans are expected to attend their first concert since October 2022, after all 7 members of the band completed South Korea's mandatory military service, guys.
250,000 people. Like, how far back are the last people going to be?
Yep.
I think I see them.
I think like NFL stadiums are like 70, 80,000
Right,
people.
exactly.
That's just incredible.
Good for them. I hope they have a good time. Thanks, Claudio.
Coming up, continuing coverage on the war with Iran. Tehran now mourning the deaths of several top Iranian leaders killed in U.S.-Israeli strikes.
When we come back, a rare look at life in the country's capital as the fighting rages on. You're watching Morning News Now. We are back now with a rare look inside Iran amid the ongoing bombardment by the United States and Israel.
As President Trump threatens to destroy Iran's major gas fields and energy infrastructure, Israel continues to target high-ranking Iranian officials. Among those killed recently was the country's influential national security chief. Tehran held a funeral for him and others killed in strikes, and Dominic Waghorn from our UK partner Sky News was there to witness the scenes. Here's his report.
If you assassinate people whose religion embraces martyrdom, this is what you can expect. As Iran's government buried its fallen heroes, its supporters came out in force. Senior security official Ali Larijani was killed in an airstrike 2 days ago, honoured along with the crew of the Iranian Navy ship sunk at the start of the war. Thousands of mourners gathered for the combined funeral, bringing their tributes to the dead. Mohammed and Hamadeh came with their family.
The way our weak enemy martyred him shows its weakness and impotence, and the method of his killing was very unfair. It's not accepted anywhere in the world.
The funeral came after another heavy night of attacks, drones and missiles dueling with air defences late into the night. In the same square as the funeral, there was an airstrike in daylight.
This is an expression of grief and defiance in the heart of their bombarded capital. But as they say farewell to the latest group of senior leaders to be assassinated by their enemy, those left behind are left wondering what comes next in this war.
These were some of the biggest crowds since the war began. As it loses leader after leader, Iran's government still wants to maintain a sense it can survive and outlast the enemy. Trump is humiliated, this propaganda poster says, alongside a picture of a blocked Strait of Hormuz. Trump, soon we will kill you, he says. Netanyahu is not our target anymore. Our target is you. You killed our children to mock us, and we will kill you to teach you a lesson in history. Teacher Safour Ahmadbegi also had something to say to her country's enemies.
What does your poster say here?
It's a poet from Ferdowsi. It is said, if we are killed, all of us, one by one are killed, it's better than giving our country to the enemy.
We saw some big protests against the government, didn't we, some weeks ago? Does that worry you that they don't want the government here?
No, they are not so big. Most of the leaders of the protests are those who are supported and who give money from Israel and from America.
As Israel and America seek regime change in Iran, its government can still muster this kind of support. And the culture of resistance and no surrender, celebrated here today, makes bombing Iran into submission all the more difficult.
Our thanks to Sky's Dominic Waghorn for that report from Tehran.
Coming up, more travel trouble. Airlines struggling with a TSA worker shortage caused by that month-long partial government shutdown. When we come back, we're going to have the latest on the funding fight that officials now warn could close some airports completely.
And W for the W will have details on a new contract agreement between the WNBA and its players union. Your Money Minute is next on Morning News Now. We are back now with the ongoing chaos at airports nationwide amid a busy travel season.
Record spring break travel is colliding with a month-long DHS shutdown, leading to severe TSA staffing shortages, long security lines, and widespread flight delays. President Trump's pick to lead that department, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, was grilled yesterday by the Senate Homeland Security Committee on Capitol Hill. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers aviation for us and has the latest.
5 weeks into the partial government shutdown and some of the longest TSA lines we've seen yet. Hours-long lines in Miami.
We always get here like 3 hours early, but some of these people are really screwed.
Same in Atlanta, the line weaving around the luggage carousels.
If you have a flight out of Atlanta today, in the next couple of hours, get here as soon as possible.
And New York LaGuardia.
Get here about 3 hours before your flight.
Making matters worse, an airport ground stop and power failure in Denver. The TSA says nearly 10% of its entire workforce called out Tuesday. Also working without pay, the Coast Guard, FEMA, and U.S. cybersecurity. Democrats and Republicans both insist they want to fund Homeland Security.
Why are we not funding these agencies that protect Americans?
We have put on the floor bills to fully fund TSA, and my Republican colleagues have objected.
But Republicans object to Democratic demands to include ICE policing reforms, part of a contentious confirmation hearing for Senator Mark Wayne Mullen to replace outgoing DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Mullen refused to apologize for calling Senator Rand Paul a snake and saying he understood why Senator Paul's neighbor attacked him in 2017, causing serious injuries.
I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force.
As far as me saying that I invoke violence, I don't.
Mullen softened his position on some immigration policies while defending federal officers who shot and killed 2 Americans in Minneapolis, though he said he regrets making statements blaming Alex Preddy for his own death.
I went out there too fast. I was responding immediately without the facts. That's my fault. That won't happen as Secretary.
Would you want to apologize to the family of Alex Preddy?
Well, sir, I just said I regret those statements.
Is that the same as an apology?
I haven't seen the investigation. We'll let the investigation go through, and if I'm proven wrong, then I will absolutely.
Back to the TSA, which is now warning that the longer this shutdown lasts and officers don't get paid, the more likely it is that the TSA will have to shut down certain airport checkpoints to consolidate positions. We've had 30, 40, 50% call-outs at some airports already. We're 33, 34 days into this. It's entirely possible some airports, smaller airports, could end up losing TSA checkpoints altogether. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you. For more, let's bring in Mike Azakian. He is the president of the TSA Workers Union for New England Airports. Mike, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us at a time where a lot of people are feeling this pain, whether it's the TSA workers themselves or anyone headed through an airport. You said in an interview this week that you don't think people realize what a full TSA agency meltdown would look like. I guess at what point does this go from being an inconvenience for people at the airport to a real security risk for the public? And how close do you think we are to something like that?
We are very close, unfortunately. I believe that if we go past if we miss another paycheck, then things will really start to unwind rapidly. And so that is inherently a security risk right there. I think the primary security risks that I can talk about are attrition and the lack of experienced people who come in to replace those who are experienced. I mean, I have 18 years in the agency, and no machine can replace instinct. I know when I go into an airport what I'm looking at, and I know what's wrong. And in this situation that we're in now, we're losing a lot of experienced people, and we're replacing them with inexperienced people. The second one would be distraction. These officers are distracted because they're thinking about their next paycheck, their financial situations, and they may not be 100% focused on what's in front of them, which is the security mission. And the third is burnout. You know, we're all burnt out by this. I mean, this is the second one since November that's lasted more than 4 days. And, you know, people can only take so much before they just hang it up and say, that's it, I have to go.
And Mike, for many TSA agents, this goes beyond not wanting to work because they aren't getting paid. And to be clear, that alone, many people in the American public understand that reason. But talk about some of the choices people are making just to get to work and why that's influencing their decision not to show up.
Well, depending on where you live, you need gas to put in your car. And, you know, people who live far away and their only option is the private transportation. If they don't have gas, they can't get to work. In Boston, if you live, you know, on the red line or the green line, or you have access to public transportation, it's not that much of an issue. But when you get into the larger states, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the problems, people live far away. And they have to drive in, and they simply can't pay for the gas to do it.
When funding is restored, when the shutdown is over, do the impacts of the TSA being put through something like this just go away, or does this have this lingering effect on the agency and potentially on safety for air travel?
Oh, it definitely has a lingering effect. I mean, you know, people go into federal service because they feel it's a stable, reliable employment, and now it's not. So, yeah, it's going to have a lasting impact. It'll have an adverse impact on recruitment. It's going to make it harder for us to bring in new people. The job's not going to be as attractive. And it is a really good job. And that's why up in the Northeast, you don't see the problems that we're having in the other areas of the country. I mean, at Logan, we don't have the call outs that we had in the last shutdown. Across New England, we don't see the same problems. And so, you know, people are coming in.
All right, Mike Azakian, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thanks.
Let's get to some money news. The WNBA and its players union have reached a tentative deal on that new collective bargaining agreement.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute. Hey, Emily.
Hey, guys. Good morning. It's a pretty groundbreaking new deal here. The team's salary cap rising dramatically to $7 million from $1.5 million, according to a person with knowledge of the terms. An average pay will be around $600,000, up from $120,000. Players will also receive a much larger share of league revenue, on average 20%, nearly double the terms of their previous agreement. Turning to tech now, Apple is urging iPhone users to update their software after new research uncovered powerful hacking tools targeting phones running older operating systems. The research suggests that Russian intelligence and Chinese cybercriminals are able to get deep remote access to victims' phones. But Apple says its latest system, that's iOS 26, which was released in September, protects against these vulnerabilities. And soon, a new kind of monster is coming to the big screen. Pop Mart is bringing its viral Labubu doll to theaters, teaming up with Sony on a live-action and computer-animated film. The project is still in early development, with Paddington's Paul King set to produce and direct. Pop Mart looking to expand beyond toys and keep momentum going after the Labubu craze that we all know so well. So, guys, we don't know yet when this is coming out. We also don't know the plot quite yet. I'm very interested in what that will be.
Someone creative will think of something.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Coming up, making education accessible to everyone.
A major university announcing it's covering the full cost of tuition for lower income families. We're going to have more on the program making it possible. We're going to chat with the school's president next. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. For many families, the price of college can shape not just where a student goes, but whether higher education even feels within reach at all. Well, now, in a major expansion of financial aid, the University of Notre Dame just announced families earning under $150,000 will pay zero tuition.
Incredible. In addition, starting in the 2026-2027 academic year, students from families making less than $60,000 a year will have the full cost of attendance covered. That means tuition, any other fees, and then also housing and food. Families earning under $200,000 will get half of their tuition covered. It is all part of the new Pathways to Notre Dame initiative, as more than 100 colleges across the country, including big ones, Princeton, MIT, Dartmouth, they offer similar tuition-free programs.
We're joined now by the man leading this effort at Notre Dame University, President Reverend Robert Dowd. Good morning, Father. Thank you for being with us to talk about this. Let's start by talking about the vision here. I mean, what went into setting these new income thresholds, and why do you think now was the right moment for your school to make this move?
Well, thank you. First of all, good morning. Thanks, Joe and Savannah. Great to be with you. And yeah, this is a really important move for us. There's no doubt about that. Back in September of 2024, I announced that we would go loan-free and need-blind for all students admitted into Notre Dame. And now we're taking this program a step further, as you mentioned. In order to be the Notre Dame we aspire to be, costs can never be a barrier. And so we've decided that this is the right moment to announce that we're going to guarantee financial aid that covers the full cost of tuition for those who come from families with an annual income of less than $150,000. So that's an important step. And then, as you mentioned, students from families with an annual income of $60,000, we cover full tuition at least, and everything else. And then those who come from families that have an annual income of $200,000, we cover half the cost of tuition. So this is an historic investment for us, and one really important because we want to be a place where cost is never a barrier to a Notre Dame education.
Oh, just such an amazing thing for families to hear. Father, if you wouldn't mind if we get a little brass tacks about it and just talk through some of the numbers. According to the website, the cost of attendance can approach $90,000 a year. Obviously a burden for many families, but your university also says in the next 4 years, the university's undergraduate financial aid commitment will exceed $1 billion through these programs that we're discussing right now. How can you make this sustainable long term?
Well, it's largely thanks to the generosity of our benefactors and superb financial stewardship over many years. We're so grateful for people who've believed in Notre Dame and have helped us to make a Notre Dame educational affordable and accessible. And, it's our endowment. Our endowment is what we're using to fund this in a very significant way. And in many ways, that's what an endowment is for. And so we're just grateful for the support that has allowed us to make this move.
What do you think this is going to mean for some of the students who will now be able to attend your school? And just how do you think it's going to shape your student body as a whole?
Yeah, it's really important for us to build a student body here at Notre Dame with students from a variety of income backgrounds, variety of backgrounds. And we want a socioeconomically diverse student body. That's important, I think, for us in order to serve our country and the wider society. I also think it's important because of our Catholic mission. We want to be a place that educates people regardless of socioeconomic background. And we think it really enriches our community. It allows us to build a community that is going to be enriching for everyone who's a part of it. To bring people together from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds is really important to Notre Dame's identity. And, you know, this is an important step. We're going to keep trying to make Notre Dame education even more accessible and affordable moving forward. So this isn't a commitment that's deep in our DNA here at Notre Dame.
Father, just incredible what y'all are doing at the school. It makes such a difference for so many families. Very quickly, if somebody does think they qualify, what should they do right now?
Well, one thing to do would be to go to website financialaid.nd.edu, and there the families can calculate, whether their annual income, and they can calculate what they qualify for. And they certainly, everyone can reach out to our financial aid office directly and talk with somebody about this as well.
All right. Father Robert Dowd, thanks so much for being here with us and sharing this wonderful positive news. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Savannah. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thank you for starting your Thursday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Let's start with live pictures from the Pentagon this morning, where moments from now we expect to hear from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Comes on the heels of another night of violence in the Middle East, with vital energy sites across the region caught in the crosshairs. President Trump now threatening to blow up the world's largest natural gas field if Iran strikes Qatar again. As the fighting escalates, global oil prices surging past $100 a gallon. Wall Street grappling with lows not seen since late last year. We're going to hear from the secretary in just a bit. On Capitol Hill, a critical vote for the Department of Homeland Security's next leader, coming 2 weeks after President Trump fired outgoing Secretary Kristi Noem. Commander-in-Chief's choice, hardline Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, at the center of a fiery Senate hearing. Key clashes with top lawmakers, and where Senator Mullen says he stands on the issues. Plus, the spring sting playing out at airports across the country just as the travel season kicks into high gear. Getaway-hungry jet setters plagued with seemingly endless lines at security. TSA agents from coast to coast working weeks without a paycheck. Others calling out sick. Fight on Capitol Hill to bring that ongoing partial government shutdown to a close. And there's more AI buzz in the world of Hollywood this morning. The groundbreaking generative tech that's bringing the late Val Kilmer back to the silver screen nearly a year after his death. Let's begin this hour with the ongoing war with Iran. The Pentagon is expected to give a press briefing any minute now as strikes continue across the Middle East. Overnight, CENTCOM said U.S. forces successfully employed multiple bunker buster bombs on Iranian missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz.
The closing of this critical shipping waterway by Iran has put pressure on the Trump administration as oil and gas prices continue to surge. We are expecting this to start any moment now, but we're going to bring in and we're going to listen along with NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube and military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Good morning to both of you. Apologies if we have to cut you off quite quickly as this gets underway. But Courtney, just first, tell us what you're expecting to hear from this briefing today, the biggest thing you want to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Strait of Hormuz is everyone's focus right now in getting that reopened. You'll recall that last week when asked about it, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was adamant in saying that they had it under control and no one should worry about the Strait of Hormuz. But now here we are days, almost a week later, and it still remains effectively shuttered. So the big question is, what is the Trump administration going to do about that? They have reached out to allies. So far, no one is interested in putting their own military or Navy at any kind of risk to try to escort ships or some other military effort here. But the question now is there some other planning that's ongoing? Guys, I got to tell you, the way that Secretary Hegseth has been acting in these briefings, he does not want to talk about any future military plans or options. So I'm not sure we'll hear a lot of specificity, despite the fact hopefully reporters will have a chance to ask about it.
Colonel, we'll bring you in here. Since the last time we had one of these press briefings last week, from your perspective, what has changed on the military front, and what are you hoping to learn from this press briefing?
So I think the most important thing that we all want to learn, or we should all want to learn, is what about the nuclear weapons? If you recall, that was one of the primary reasons for this entire operation, is to destroy and strike Iran's nuclear capabilities. We haven't really heard a thing about nukes since this whole thing kicked off. So I'm listening for that. I'm also listening for the status of the Iranian Navy. We've received very good updates on the status of the Navy at each one of these briefings. They've gone into some good detail about the effects that the U.S. military has had on the Iranian Navy. I'm looking for an update on that because that's part of the Strait of Hormuz puzzle.
You are listening to top Pentagon officials giving an update on the war with Iran. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane opening with condolences for the American service members who have died in the conflict. The Pentagon's main message: each day the strikes grow more intense and U.S. forces attack deeper into Iran.
For more on this, let's bring back in NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube and military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Thank you both for being back with us. Some of those big questions that we were discussing just before this briefing began remain unanswered. A big one, Courtney, having to do with Iran's nuclear capabilities. We did hear the Secretary of Defense say in discussing what he told his son that the next generation won't have to deal with a nuclear Iran, but not a lot of other details at this point. Tell us what stuck out to you.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being very candid here, we didn't get any new facts or any information about the actual conflict. In fact, some of the operational details that General Kane gave are days old already. So we still have zero answers on exactly what the U.S. intends to do to try to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It's been days now since there has been a real flow of any commercial traffic through there. Everyone knows that it's having a direct impact on gas prices and jet fuel prices. We have zero answers to that. And as you said, Savannah, we still don't know what's going to happen with the nuclear program. The U.S. has made the strikes so far have really have centered on Iran's conventional forces. So ballistic missiles, their drone capabilities, they have taken it. The U.S. has made huge advances in decimating the Iranian Navy. They've gone after their Air Force, but there has not been any real effort against the nuclear program. And interestingly enough, we have not even really heard mention of it at today's briefing here.
Colonel, let's bring you in here, knowing we didn't learn a lot of new information here today. What are some of the questions you still have, and what are some of the things you would like to hear the Pentagon talk about in relaying information to the American public? Knowing the war is not terribly popular, according to polls, what are some of the things you would like to hear from the Pentagon to try and make its case for where things stand and where things should go moving forward?
Yeah, I think just building on what Courtney said, what was most notable and what I'm always listening for and would like to hear an answer to, you know, the Secretary mentioned the military objectives: missiles, launchers, and industry, Navy, and nukes. And then, interestingly, the chairman then listed his view of the objectives, and he didn't even include nukes, right? He said missiles, launchers, Navy, and industry, right? So I'm curious why where that disconnect is coming from and why it's there and when it's going to be resolved, because I think it is something, it seems like inside baseball, but ultimately I think it's a very important point that they need to work out amongst themselves. I like the fact that the that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, is focused and is giving some information about the attacks we've made on the Iranian Navy. I would like to see more details. He mentioned 120 vessels. I'm very curious what percentage of that is actually surface combatants and what percentage of that is oilers and support ships, et cetera. The Secretary mentioned submarines. I don't believe the chairman mentioned submarines, although the chairman mentioned 44 mine layers, which, again, these mine layers, the submarines, these are all such important pieces of the puzzle to unlocking the Strait of Hormuz, Joe.
All right. Colonel Warren and Courtney Kube walking us through this press conference, which continues. We will have much more to come here on this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us. We will be right back. Back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the latest statement from leadership at the Federal Reserve.
NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach joins us with that and more. Gary, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is taking a page out of the Wolf of Wall Street playbook. telling reporters Tuesday he isn't stepping down from the central bank's board until an investigation launched by the Department of Justice over alleged false statements during his congressional testimony is complete. Powell also left the door open to remaining a member of the board even after the probe and his term ends, saying he's not made a decision on that just yet. Last week, a federal judge prevented Powell from having to comply with a grand jury subpoena, suggesting there wasn't enough evidence of wrongdoing by Powell. An Ohio jury on Wednesday sided with the rapper Afro Man in a lawsuit brought by the sheriff deputies who raided his home in a search for drugs that came up empty. The deputies filed suit several years ago, accusing Afro Man, born Joseph Foreman, of defamation and invasion of privacy after he produced a music video called Lemon Pound Cake, which included footage from a 2022 search of his home. Foreman said he was just exercising his freedom of speech. A jury found Foreman not liable for any of the 13 claims against him. Democrats in the House of Representatives are looking to force a vote on Homeland Security funding that would fully fund every part of the department except ICE and Customs and Border Protection. But they're going to need some help. Even if every Democrat in the House votes yes, they will still need 4 Republicans in their efforts here to be successful. Democrats have refused to fund DHS because of the Trump administration's immigration policies and the recent shootings of 2 American citizens by ICE. Republicans say Democrats should be the ones blamed for the long waits we're seeing at airports nationwide that's been caused by a lack of TSA employees. Because of the stalemate, they haven't been paid in several weeks. That's what's happening in politics now. Back to you guys.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. Staying at the Department of Homeland Security, we've got some exclusive reporting on allegations that the department's top advisor, Corey Lewandowski, sought to personally make money off of government contracts.
The story is based on accounts from nearly 24 people, including current administration and DHS officials and industry sources who have done business with the department. Lewandowski denies the allegations.
NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley was among those who broke this story for us this morning. She joins us now. Julia, walk us through what we're learning from the many people you've spoken to. I know you mentioned Lewandowski's alleged dealings with a company called the GEO Group. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's right. That's GEO Group, and they're a titan in the private prison industry, and they own a lot of the facilities that the administration could use to vastly expand immigration detention. But right now, they have a lot of beds sitting idle, and part of that, we understand that executives at GEO Group think that that is a result of retaliation on the part of Corey Lewandowski because their CEO refused to pay him in exchange for securing contracts. In fact, we were told that ICE officials who were coming into the administration last year were told not to give contracts to GEO Group as a result, and they saw some of their contracts that were existing shrink. Corey Lewandowski has denied that that allegation came, that he ever solicited any payment from GEO Group. He's also denied another incident that we have in our story with a group called Salas. This was an indirect solicitation for payment where Salas, another contractor that we know got a $1 billion contract from DHS, reached out to a marketing firm asking them if they were interested in a $20 million contract and then later a $40 million contract on the condition that they hire a firm for consulting that would be tied to Corey Lewandowski so that they could, quote, thank the investigate in terms of Corey Lewandowski's role. Remember, Lewandowski and Kristi Noem had to sign off on anything over $100,000. White House, they say top advisors there and even the president have been made aware of these allegations. One senior advisor telling NBC, we are Trump's pick to head the DHS. Then, of course, Kristi Noem did, the outgoing DHS secretary. But he was asked in one exchange about what the inspector general at DHS would do and if he would cooperate. House Democrats have asked the inspector general at DHS to look into Lewandowski. Here's what Mullins said in response.
I will do everything that's required of me by law, but the IG will be doing the investigation, and we'll let the IG, decide what documents he's going to share, and maybe you can bring that up with him.
Now, it's not clear how far the IG is into an investigation or if they've really opened one at all. But what House Democrats are asking for is that the IG probe everything about Lewandowski's policies on contracting and some of his correspondence with contractors. So, of course, this story today that's coming after 7 months of reporting really gets in some of those same details that we now know are being probed for and asked about across the federal government.
Julia Ainsley, appreciate your reporting. Our team's reporting much more right now on NBCnews.com.
Coming up, some major tech news that's tapping into the world of entertainment this morning.
How AI is now helping bring the late, great Val Kilmer back to screens everywhere nearly a year after his death. That is next. Stay with us. We are back with a new way artificial intelligence is being used in Hollywood. The late actor Val Kilmer's family has been working with a pair of independent filmmakers to create an AI-generated version of him in an upcoming movie. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas reports.
You're everyone's problem.
For decades, Val Kilmer's unique style and innate cool elevated films like Top Gun, The Doors, and Tombstone.
I'm your huckleberry.
Now, a year after his death, the iconic actor will return to the screen as an AI-generated version of his former self.
He's no longer with us, but we're going to get the experience of Val Kilmer through this process of this story.
Before his health deteriorated, filmmakers Cordy and John Voorhees say Kilmer was enthusiastic about his role in As Deep as the Grave, a film about archaeologists and Native Americans in the Southwest desert.
We're all about ethical AI. That is what this is, right? And it's collaborative. This film specifically is the best example because he already wanted to do this character.
The filmmakers say they used home movies and personal photos to generate the new AI version, not Kilmer's professional work.
The Navy needs Maverick.
The actor had embraced similar technology during his lifetime. After losing his voice because of throat cancer, he worked with a software company to create an AI-powered version for the 2022 movie Top Gun Maverick.
One last thing. Who's the better pilot? You or me?
He always looked at emerging technologies with optimism as a tool to expand the possibilities of storytelling. His daughter Mercedes wrote, "With generative AI now able to instantly produce deepfake clips like this, many in Hollywood feel under threat, while others are embracing aspects of the technology."
People sort of feel like this is the Wild West when it comes to AI.
My name is Michael Caine.
Some screen legends or their estates have made deals with AI companies.
All right.
Matthew McConaughey has trademarked his voice and likeness to prevent unauthorized replicas and partnered with 11 Labs to translate his Texas twang into Spanish.
Y con mi permiso, 11 Labs trabajó conmigo para traducir mi voz.
It shows a model for how AI could be used, how people could profit from the use, how their families could profit from the use of AI.
Our thanks to Chloe Malas for that report. The movie As Deep as the Grave currently in post-production. No release date yet. No footage has been shared yet, so we don't know how it's going to look or how well Kilmer's likeness will be received. All right, some money news now. The FDA is withdrawing a proposed rule to ban minors from using tanning beds.
NBC News Business and Economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute. Hey, Emily.
Hey, guys. That federal rule was first proposed in 2015. The goal to prevent minors from using indoor sun lamps or tanning beds and to require anyone older than 18 using a tanning salon to sign a waiver acknowledging the risks. That includes skin cancer and also severe burns. While dozens of states already ban the use for minors, without a federal rule, protections will continue to vary by state. Over in social media, the competition is heating up. Meta has launched a new program to lure top creators away from rival platforms. Facebook's Creator Fast Track offers up to $3,000 a month for 3 months for users with a certain following on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. The new program is designed to help creators boost their Facebook following and monetize the platform. And with gas prices on the rise, some potentially good news for later this year, well, for Costco members at least. According to multiple reports, the retailer known for selling in bulk is set to open its first standalone gas station in Southern California this summer. The 40-pump location will be the company's largest yet and highlights Costco's growing focus on fuel. Now, guys, typically, Costco's known to have cheaper gas prices compared to some rival gas stations. So this could maybe incentivize people to become Costco members, also maybe bring in some more foot traffic into stores.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate it. Coming up, the magic of some of Star Wars' most memorable battles given a new life right here on Earth.
When Morning News Now returns, we'll introduce you to the passionate fans who are bringing those classic lightsaber duels into reality. That's next. Finally, this hour, we are harnessing the power of the Force in a galaxy not so far away. We're taking a look at one group of people who are making some of sci-fi's most iconic battles a reality.
It's safe to say that many of us have imagined ourselves locked in an intense lightsaber battle after watching a Star Wars movie. Well, our NBC News correspondent George Solis takes us into the actual world of competitive saber battling that brings those duels to life.
Fast-paced, action-packed, the kind that makes you light up in more ways than one. Welcome to the competitive world of LED saber combat.
There's not really a whole lot to stress about. We're adults fighting with lightsabers.
Based in science fiction, but grounded in reality. As athletes decked in customized fencing mask and armor clash in authentic swordplay.
It is literally united through sabers because we've got people from all over the country. We've got people from every walk of life.
Look at it.
This group, part of a fighting family known as the Saber Legion, currently made up of more than 1,000 members with charters in 33 states and Puerto Rico and even 10 countries.
It's definitely been one of the most accepting sports I've been in. We've been over to Las Vegas, we've been up to Pittsburgh, we've been in Ohio.
They'll be the first to tell you, though, this is about more than just dueling.
We say that the lightsaber fighting is actually just secondary, and what it really is an excuse to make friends with people with common interests from all over the place that you would never have an excuse to meet otherwise.
Jared Graham helps run the Florida chapter. On this day, some of the best in the sport gathered in Claremont, Florida for a no-cost-to-enter competition.
Can someone that doesn't know a thing about sabers compete?
Absolutely. You need nothing to show up. You don't have to have gear or sabers. We have those to loan you. And so we can show you basics.
I decided to take a stab at it.
I'm feeling blue.
We're going to start with that just to get used to the feel of the sword. Good. Good.
Okay.
Solid. Awesome. Now, good thrust to the chest. Excellent.
And after a few practice swings,
let's do the real thing.
Suiting up for safety, because these up-to-league regulation sabers are made up of the same stuff police batons are. Here, the objective isn't hitting one another's blades. It's about strategy and landing the point-earning blow to your opponent's body.
Good, good, good instincts. Excellent, nice hit.
My forearm could probably use a little work, but athleticism, a lot of skill, a lot of safety, paramount to making this work. Do it all, quality sportsmanship, honor, and friendship.
The same themes being highlighted and lighting up the big screen in a new documentary about the sport titled Saber. It comes as the Saber Legion celebrates a decade of hard-hitting and equally hard-hugging competition.
I always joke that some of my best friends are the ones I trust to hit me hardest in the face, because I know they're doing it with good intent.
Alec Martinez is one of the athletes featured in the film.
There are not words to describe how at home I get to feel. I think a lot of us who grew up loving this stuff didn't have a home.
And while the competition is fierce, even the ranking champion will tell you, even a loss can still feel like a win.
Worst case scenario, I spent the weekend in Orlando, 10 hours away from home, with a great community.
Honor is a big part of the sport, I'm noticing.
Absolutely. And that's important to cultivate in our culture, to say that we want to do the right thing.
Sportsmanship that literally shines. George Solis, NBC News, Claremont, Florida.
Watch out, Olympics. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right after a quick break.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.